What's up, everyone? Pittsburgh White Schwartz coming at you with yet another video. This time we are doing a tournament report for BGRT Springfest Toronto 2023. I am joined today by Brian, Tyler, Tanner, Zach, Andy, and SBTCG Patrick. Say hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm
Hello,
here.
everyone.
I'm usually here.
Hello.
Still here.
Big group. We are going to go through both of their runs. If you want to hear about mine, it's over on the Burn One channel. Nothing very interesting. It was really funny because every group we brought from Pittsburgh was right on the 4-2 bubble.
Yeah, we all went
every single one. Burn One with me was at 4-2. We got 9th. Tanner and Stevenson's.
Tanner and I ended 11th. Yeah.
11th, yeah, and we'll talk about the last one. They went a little further. Patrick, Andy, and Zach. So yeah, you guys can just kick it off. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I guess Tyler, Tanner, and I can run through our less interesting run, and then we can give the floor over to.
Yeah, sure thing.
To the
over. You guys will all want to do like just all go round one, all go round two, or
we could do that too if you guys would rather.
Up
to
y'all.
Introduce your decks first.
Yeah. Go through what y'all played. Why you brought that.
All right, so I was player A on my team. I played 7 Deadly Sins. I played the 6 Stock Soul 2 choice Escanor list that's been going around. My opinions on the deck after the event have changed a little bit since having played tested it beforehand. The deck, especially against board-based decks, feels really bad, and it's already kind of a pain to sculpt correctly into your finisher in normal games. And when you're constantly crashing out and having to hit brainstorms to maintain board just to get attacks in, it becomes extremely difficult to get your dream finisher off. And I experienced that in a couple of my games. Tyler or Tanner was our B player actually.
Yeah, Tanner was B. Yeah.
All right. Well, I brought my own concoction from Hololive. It was 3 Miko Standby, 3 Sora Bar, 2 Maureen. Kind of like Miko Sora, but gives you a little bit of push at the end. Brought it because it was A, Miko's birthday. B, I hate taking damage, so Nagsel's the only way I don't do that. And C, I needed some bit of reach after playing Miko Sora last time and not being able to kill people.
And Tyler.
I played 8-door Quince, and that was pretty much it.
I didn't know you were on 8-door. I thought you were on 8 standby.
No, I hate that deck.
Any reason you were on 8-door over 8 standby?
Standby feels worse to me. I like the push for the finisher and the
Fair
broken
enough.
level 1 combo.
Level 1 combo does slap.
I was player A for my team. I was on 8-door AOT, which I picked mostly as a comfort pick. I am very comfortable with the deck. I've played a lot of it. I like the fact that you pretty much never have hand issues, at least not in my experience. And I also enjoy how well it holds board and contest board and the reach of the Sasha finisher.
It was interesting to see too. Like there was so much AOT in Toronto, but I didn't see anyone else playing the 8-door deck.
Yeah, I didn't see any either.
Yeah, I think most people were either on door choice or 8 pants, which we'll probably get to in a little bit with what happened throughout the tournament. But
Well, I guess continuing on there, I was player B on me, Zach, and Patrick's team. I was playing Tokyo Revengers, the dual laners deck, with the new Pachin tech. I chose that deck pretty much because it was a comfort pick for me, definitely. Because I kind of got wrangled into the tournament kind of a last second. It's kind of funny. Zach and Patrick needed another teammate for their team, so I had to I scrambled to get myself ready the week before, so I could play with them for this. But yeah, I tried out the 7 Deadly Sins deck too, and was thinking about playing that for the event, but I don't know, just something about it. It kind of felt like it does like a similar thing that Tokyo Revengers does. You kind of just have this big combo at the top, and you have a bunch of burn ones. But I don't know. I just didn't feel as comfortable on it or as confident in the 7 Deadly Sins list. And I kind of wanted to put Pachin to the test, see how good that combo was like actually over the course of the day against like a broad meta. So that's what I went with. Patrick.
So my decision, I was originally going to play the Okayu Sora Marine deck that was featured on the Burn 1 tournament report. Carmen and I had been testing that deck over the past couple of months, seeing what the matchups were like, seeing how the deck itself ran. But the week before the tournament, I ended up pivoting to Kanata Marine. There were a couple different reasons, as Carmen had stated in that video. If you are interested, go over there, watch that. The matchups are fairly decent for the Sora game plan, but there are a couple matchups that were more popular throughout the day that I feared encountering. And I thought that Kanata Marine, if you could loop it enough, the extra compression you could generate off that combo would allow you to play more comfortably into the top ends of some of those worse matchups. So I ended up playing Kanata Marine, and we'll get to how the success went for that throughout this discussion.
Yeah, and 7 Deadly
Yeah.
Sins was a bit rougher for that deck than I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
I was ready to take the L to all the Kanata Marines, but I was not ready for all the 7 Deadly Sins. That was that was really rough.
Yeah, when I was testing with Tom, when Tom was preparing for Worlds, he showed me that 7 Deadly Sins actually has a favorable matchup into that. And that was the one matchup I did not want to play the most, was 7 Deadly Sins into Sora. I know exactly how the top end works into Sora, and it completely shuts Sora down. So I didn't want to have to deal with that.
Yep. All right. So Brian, Tyler, Tanner, do you guys just want to run through your whole event first, or do y'all want to do rounds?
That's up to what the group wants here. I mean, I'm down to run through our 6 rounds and hand it over.
Yeah, why don't you guys
That's
run
fine.
through your 6 rounds? It'll probably be
Yeah, instead of passing it back and forth, it'll probably save a
it'll
little
be
bit
more
of time.
smooth.
All right, so yeah, our round 1. I played into I don't even know what triggers the guy was on. It was like choice standby Tokyo Revengers with Pachin. But the fact that Pachin was there was almost a problem for my deck nonetheless. But luckily my opponent's deck kind of exploded in his hands a little bit. I managed to just slam Stock Soul every turn, stick a bunch of 2s, and get there with a single Escanor at the end.
Yeah.
Tanner.
Yeah, for me, I played 8 choice adventure time. Pretty standard game. Nothing too crazy to call out. My opponent had a pretty rough time seeing her climaxes early, so not being able to push with that climax down into my Sora neg soul walls was pretty rough for her.
And Tyler.
I played against 8-bar Hololive, which was just Okayu Sora. I ended up losing that match because my only out in 8-door to Sora is Adachi, because I was running low on hand almost the entire game because I kept whiffing my level 1 climax. And because of that, I wasn't able to hit my finisher combo for when they played Sora at level 3. So they just neg sold me 2 or 3 times in a row. So I lost that.
That matchup's really rough for you. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like that was one of the matchups that was like free farm for Sora, because like the one Adachi just isn't enough.
But luckily
I have two
Tanner and
Adachi's.
yeah, he does play 2. But luckily Tanner and I got there. We won round 1. In round 2, I played into Kanata Marin, which another board-based deck. My opponent fielded 2 Kanatas out there on their first level 2 turn. I managed to Nanashi both of them to win back my tempo on play. I milled 3, hit a climax, anti-change bomb the other. I was in a relatively favorable spot. Triggered a few climaxes going into my opponent's level 3 turn and died to Marin. So unfortunate there. Lost my round 2 game. Tanner.
Yeah, I played against 8-bar Glitter Green. Not super familiar with the deck, but kind of reading his cards as he was playing him, I was kind of able to pick up on kind of the gimmick of switching cards into your level. So I could tell he was able to get some people probably that day on who weren't as familiar with it with powers, but Sora was able to be big enough so that it kind of didn't care what he was doing. And then actually never fielded Marin and just killed him with Soras over time.
Tyler.
And for me, I played against TRV dual laners. I was behind the entire game because he was just canceling a little bit more than me. But at the end, he was around 2-4-ish, and I was at 3-3, 3-4. I go, okay, I might as well just try and pop my combo off. I had the triple Itsuki and see if I could kill him. If I don't, then I lose. But I managed to kill him with just 3 combos somehow.
Yeah,
And I
numbers
won that.
landed right.
Yeah,
That's
I was able
insane.
to ping off the correct climaxes, and that was pretty much it.
You made it to 3 before dual laner TRV. That alone is impressive.
I did it twice.
Yeah,
twice. We'll get
it's
to that,
insane.
All right, round 3, we played against the team that won the whole thing. I played into Panstor Kaguya. It was a pretty normal game up until level 3. I did make a bad misplay. I went into my finisher turn with 6 stock, fielded 2 Escanor and a Gale Thunder, and then proceeded to set my crit trigger, my 2-soul trigger, on top of my deck, forgetting that I would not have the 1 stock to resolve Escanor on the first attack. And failed to kill my opponent that turn. But luckily, in true Weiss Schwartz fashion, I was never punished. I lived my opponent's Kaguya finisher turn and managed to kill him the following. Tanner.
I played into 8 Standby Quinch. Biggest misplay I had of the day. I saw him take the anti-change counter the turn after I established, or the turn after my first Sora. So I'm like, okay, got to play around that. Forgetting to note that he was at 1-4 and just canceled my swing in the open lane, and proceeded to side a lane for no reason, and then front attack after he leveled up, not caring about losing one of the Soras because I already plussed on my stock. So if I would have fronted and then sided, I would have been completely avoided that and probably had a bit more pressure throughout the game. So I was able to recoup the Sora a turn later, but just losing out on that extra Meg Soul for no reason was pretty brutal for me.
And for me, I played against the SDS deck that everybody's running around with Escanor. He ran very, very clean. This was the team that won the whole event, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won. He was running very, very hot. Just couldn't take the damage, and then he was able to finish it with Escanor. It was just a normal game, and I lost.
Yeah, so we lost this round. We were 2-1 at this point. I do want to give that Kaguya player I played against a shout out. We were talking. He's a viewer of this channel. So if you're watching this, congratulations on your win. Round 4, I played into Standby Bar Mushoku, and my deck got shredded by the Rudrid combo. Hit like all of my climaxes off double Rudrid, and I just died. So that was a little bit of a rough game for me. I ate a little bit too much damage early as well, had trouble sculpting, and could not get there.
Yeah, this was my most interesting and wildest game. I played against 8 Seven Deadly Sins, so it was the King level 1 with the Diane level 3. A lot of the actual like green support cards that you don't typically see. So he was I was playing into it, and I started turn 1. I just put up a LaPlus in front. He takes the 2, and then he proceeded to tri-field me, send me straight to 1-4. And then afterwards, I did my normal play my Mikos, get out my 2-1 in the back row. I only put 2 Mikos out, and then the LaPlus stayed alive because he had to side it last turn. He proceeds to triple cancel, clocks himself to 0-3, can only field 1 attacker, swings in. I eat it, go to 2-6. Then I proceed to play 2 Soras. I was not able to combo because my hand was like it was 4 climaxes, and I had no way to out them at the moment. Slam the climax to try to push some damage. He cancels on 5, he cancels on 3, and I just pass to him. So he has to pass right back because he had no playables. I looked in his grave. He had no Rickies in grave. Didn't look like he was – it looked kind of like he was playing more so just the 2 characters he liked the most. So kind of using that knowledge, I took the risk on just passing and doing nothing. He proceeds to pass right back. I clock myself to 2-0, hard play the 2-1, put out my last Sora, and just from there on, he just proceeds to go straight to 2-5 and fields a single card the next turn because he doesn't have any stock, and dies to a pretty brutal fashion of not being able to push any damage after that point. So Sora's been really putting in the works.
I played against 8 standby Quince. I feel like 8 door Quince versus 8 standby Quince. I feel like 8 door has a leg up. I think just being able to have a little bit more damage push in a way than 8 standby. Plus, I think you win 0 and 1 until they start throwing out a bunch of standbys at you, just because of the level 1 combo. I started to play the 4K ski promo, and that helped me win a lot of board in not just this matchup, but others as well. And that's pretty much it. It was a normal game, and I got it.
The old standby doesn't push damage.
It actually didn't. I was able to live. I was able to live longer than I should have because 8 standby does not push damage.
You have to like
able to
keep
keep
your
my
board
back
against
up.
the 6/5s.
Huh?
You can like keep board with the act package.
Yeah, because I keep
Have
the 1/1 in the back row. You know, I just pump everything, and then the moment that he plays either a 2/2 Nino or a higher level, I would just Adachi it because I run 2 Adachis.
I
I
just
don't know
throw
what you
one
guys
out
are
every
talking
turn.
about with standby. That deck pushes so much damage against me every single time I play it. I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
It
Standby?
depends
Yeah,
how many
that's
each
the
got back rows they have.
They always
Yeah.
have
back
to.
row, yeah.
They always
I
have to.
anti-change it every single time that they play it down, so it's kind of hard for them to
Okay.
push damage like that.
All right. Round 5, we played into some players from the New Jersey area that we knew. I played into Konatamarin. I did win this game because my opponent's deck fell apart in his hands. Once again, just repeatedly slamming Stock Soul, eat 2, eat 3, eat 2, eat 3, play level 1 Meliodas, choose trigger, swing for 4 sticks. I'm a level ahead the entire game. My opponent cracks me back with Marin in an act of desperation at the end of the game. I end up at like 3-5 or 3-6. My opponent is also 3-6 at this point. I go in for the kill, swing for 1-1-1. Swing for 1, opponent cancels on 1. Swing for 1, opponent cancels on 1. And luckily, I did not trigger on my last attack. That final 1 stuck, and I won the game. Had I triggered, though, the next card was a climax. So
That had to be Steve, right?
no, that was
Yep.
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it was fucking Steve. Of course it was Steve. He's so strong.
Yeah, I played my second matchup, and my second loss was both of my losses were to H Standby Quince. This was by Dan. He had 2 Ichikas in the back row. He pumped so much soul. He pumped right over the Soro neg to the wall. Pretty reliably. He triggered every single lane, every single attack. He was triggering not only the 3-2 when he had the right climax. He triggered the climax on the 3rd attack with the actual standby, so he gets an extra one. His board was massive at all points in time. I anti-changed him once, and then the very next turn he triggered a standby right off rip and pretended like nothing happened. So he was running really, really hot, and I was sitting there with nothing to stand for it, just praying that I could cancel one attack and did not. So it was pretty tough.
And we're back to TRV. So this game was a fiesta. Both of us were out 8 on turn 2 or 3. And he was able to he had a climax in hand and I did not. He was able to punish my empty deck, and I was sitting around level 2 as he was still 0. He then was able to get through the rest of his deck, compress, as TRV does, and I think I was just way too far behind in damage. By the time I tried to use my finisher combo, he was the bottom of level 1, and he canceled almost everything. I think I hit him to the bottom of 2. And then, oh no, I did hit him to 3, because then he finished me off with, what's the burn guy called?
The blue combo.
No,
the
Meteos.
mill one.
Oh,
Meteos,
the
yeah.
Meteor, yeah, the red one.
Yeah, he was able to use like 3 or 4 Meteos on me, and I just died off that.
But yeah, after winning my game and watching Tanner lose his, I remember looking over at your game, seeing you like a level and a half, 2 levels behind against TRV, and looking at Tanner and going, "Oh, that's
Yeah,
I think
I
we
mean
lost this one."
TRV with Quince, it's not a good matchup because
No.
I don't have a stock swap. It's
Mhm.
kind of impossible to get through that.
All right, and our final round, I played into 8-door attack on Titan. I had a relatively normal game up until my second to last turn, when I once again triggered 2 climaxes and died to Sasha Restander. Nothing much more to say about that one. Had a little bit of an unfortunate run.
Yeah, I played into 8-door Ruby. Was pretty ahead most of the game. Not being able to get reverses with the level 1 or the 2-1 because of me getting out swords so early. Since I had those out, I was at 1-3, I think, the turn that I put those out. So he just wasn't able to find a way to crack over those quickly enough. So was able to establish those. He eventually died to triple Marine, as you do, and looked on to Tyler for our deciding factor if we made 4-2 or not.
Yeah, and then I was against Kanata Marine. The way that I played around Kanata was I decided that my best choice of action was to hoard both of my Adachis in hand until he played Kanata. So his Kanata turn, he played 3 Kanatas, got his stock in his hand back. I went Adachi, Vanilla Swinger. And then I was able to out 2 of them. He was not able to bring the Kanatas back the next turn, but he was able to do it the turn after. He then was able to grab off his last Kanata turn tap counter. We were both around 3 at that point, and luckily I was able to cancel his last couple swings for me to use my finisher on him. I was able to use the Adachi effect to swap back row with front row, so I could side and avoid tap counter. And I just won off my finisher combo with that. I was able to do 2 eat skis and just a vanilla swinger.
Your opponent sounds like a good player, though, somehow managing to spend like 3 turns at level 2 on Kanata.
After losing 2 of them to memory.
he was a good player, yeah.
Very, very skilled, yeah.
Yeah,
But
he was
yeah.
a good player. That was a very, very tough game. I was not sure if I was going to win that for the most part.
But yeah, Tyler did win his game, and our team ended 4-2 on the day, along with every other team represented in this call. So we were all
we were all on the bubble there.
Yeah, we did. Unfortunately, our round 5 opponents, the Jersey boys, did end up losing their round 6 match, which hurt our opponent match win a little bit. I don't know exactly where the rest of our opponents ended up, aside from the team that won the whole event. But our match wins were not good enough, and we ended 11th place, which is not a horrible run.
I wasn't even sure what happened with our past opponents. I wasn't sure if Brian and Jason's team kept playing or if they dropped something. We were much more worried about something else. But all right, let's do something more uplifting. Patrick, Zach, Andy, you guys want to run through your rounds?
Sure. So my first round was against 8-stock Soul Konosuba. I had no idea what any of the cards in this guy's deck did, so it was a pretty interesting game, especially with those crit triggers. I was pretty scared when I see those, because normally when I see those, I assume he's going to trigger those a lot, I'm going to eat it a lot, and then I'm going to die a lot. But instead, he ended up not canceling that much throughout the game, so I was pretty much level ahead the whole way through. Apparently the Megumin finisher that this deck runs is basically you discard your whole hand, you pay out all your stock, if you put 8 more cards into your win room this way, you blow up your opponent's entire field, you mill them through the rest of their deck, then you burn them for the number of the finishers in your level zone. He never ended up resolving that, but it was a funny card to read, and it was a pretty interesting game with that finisher like hanging over my head the whole way through. But I pretty much stayed ahead the whole way through and ended up just killing him right when I hit level 3.
Yeah, I love that Megumin finisher, the one he was running. That's like such a cool card. But yeah, my first round opponent, again, I was playing Tokyo Avengers. I played against Bar Choice Hololive. And he had the I think he had the Okayu combo at level 1, I believe, into the Coco level 3. And I did not really have a whole lot of experience playing into that. I think Hololive expert Tanner had played me with Coco at some point because he tried like every build for it. So it looked familiar. And then he had like the burn event at the top that like pay a bunch of stock and you burn them for 4 twice. So an interesting deck that I was not anticipating having to play into. But yeah, I had a few good turns early on with like perfect cancels, like canceling on 3 or whatever, into like a double Pachins early level 1, and then I just never lost board from that point on. And I was going for more like, even though I had the dual laners, I was doing more like 3 attacks per turn. I didn't really use the dual laners at all that game, and then I just blew them up at the end.
So my round 1 matchup was against 8 Standby Quince. You'll hear me saying that this was my matchup quite often. It was the one deck that I played against the most throughout the day, and honestly, it was the matchup I felt the most confident in. Round 1 goes, I start with LaPlus turn 1, as Hololive tends to do. Scroll into level 1 first, and then hit level 2 first, as Kanata typically does. This game, I ended up triple Kanata first turn at level 2, so I high rolled that, was able to throw down the board, generate hand back, and respond to anything that they wanted to do, and ended up compressing enough to survive through their level 3 and finish them off with Marine, so I ended up winning round 1. So I think that made us 1-0, and then if we want to go on to round 2.
Round 2, I got 8-door Kanokari. This was a pretty one-sided game, all things considered. I was better. I felt like I was better decking him. I felt like I was more experienced than him, and on top of all that, I was also kind of sacking him. So this was. I was extremely dominant the whole way through, and ended up killing him. I think at level 2. I think, if I remember correctly.
Conceptually, that matchup sounds horrific to me. For the Konokari player. That does not sound like any fun at all.
Yeah,
at any level.
I felt a little bit bad for him in some ways, because he was clearly a guy who was mostly just to have fun, and here he is queuing into this absolutely horrible matchup for him.
Yeah, I think the team we queued into round 2, I think they seemed like newer players. I think they said they watched our channel.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So it was cool playing against them and meeting them. But yeah, I think a little bit newer to the game. Round 2, my round 2 opponent was playing Bang Dream, and he opens up with a lot of blue cards. So I'm like, okay, he's playing the Roselia deck. So I was expecting Birdcage Yukina and a lot of the Resonate stuff at level 2, but it quickly realized that it was just a trial deck, pretty much. I don't think too many upgrades to it. And the game ended up going kind of long still, because just the way Dual Laner Tokyo Avengers is, I can't really push a lot of damage, even though he wasn't very compressed. So I kind of just had to slow roll it still. But yeah, he slammed a 2-soul trigger at some point, and I started pooping my pants a little bit. But triple canceled that turn, and the rest was pretty smooth sailing.
So for round 2 against that team, I queued into a Pants Stock Soul Kantai deck. So I honestly didn't remember what the climax is comboed with in that deck. I know the Stock Soul actually comboed with the Musashi, but I don't think his deck had any cards after Kantai set 2. So it was a very older deck queuing into Kanata Marine. So hearing that, you can probably just imagine how the game goes. The guy was really nice. Shout out to that player. The whole team was a bunch of fun guys. But I ended up basically helping teach my opponent the mechanics throughout Weiss of how a turn goes. And it ended up being at level 2 when I had triple Kanata out at in the front row. I was able to loop the Toa back row, pull up both of his level 0 back rows, and just run him out of resources. So it was pretty much a one-sided game. But again, shout out to them. They were a bunch of fun guys. I hope they enjoyed the event.
Absolutely. My round 3 opponent, I queued into Kanata Marine, and as soon as my opponent saw what I was playing, he audibly said, "Oh no," which kind of gives an idea of how this matchup went. I was up. I was head through most of the game. When the contest came down, I was able to force counters in their lanes on multiple occasions, and was also pretty well compressed at this point, and was able to stay at low level 2. So when I managed to grind him up to level 3, the Marines weren't able to kill me, and I was able to kill him back on the swing back with Sasha and Gabby.
Wasn't this the team that got top 4?
Yeah, so I
We
was
played them again, right?
yeah, I was gonna bring this up. This is actually we'll have a rematch with this team later on, but we did play this team twice that day.
It's
I
That's
have,
it. Maybe I just misremembered something,
Yeah,
but
maybe
I
I'm
thought I saw
misremembering it.
Zach playing against the other guy in the final round. I thought Zach played against
yeah, I
It's
did have a
second last round.
rematch. I played against my round 4 opponents in Top Cut. So maybe I'm just misremembering. That's
Yeah,
possible.
I
didn't
think you
take
might
any
I think
notes
you
till
might have round
afterwards.
3 and 4 mixed up. I was comparing with one of the players on the team that we played in round 4, and they had their matchups that we played them in round 4. So I think we both I mixed these rounds up myself.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I was taking pretty detailed notes like after every round. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm pretty. Yeah, this was the team that we ended up playing again in Top Cut. I played
Okay.
against Danny Pham from Canada. He was on Blue AOT. Really cool guy. They also watch the channel, so shout outs to them. Really cool meeting you guys. So the first time we played in bracket, he had a couple really bad breaks. It felt like throughout the game. I don't really have a ton of notes other than that. It just felt like a bad game for him. And I do remember I was able to get like a couple potions set up early. I tried to get those set up to like run him out of resources, because the blue AOT deck needs like full field to be able to combo off. So I figured, okay, he's having a bad game. I'm just gonna try to like twist the knife as hard as I can and just completely drain him out of resources. And again, like he didn't have stock swap or anything too, so I just tried to build up a bunch of stock before that, and I just was pretty compressed and canceled his finishers and swung back and killed him.
So for this matchup, I ended up playing the mirror, Kanata Marine into Kanata Marine. Again, started with Laplace turn 1. I didn't go first. My opponent ended up going first, but their turn 1 play was the Coco Brainstorm. So starting with Laplace in my hand, I was able to establish board from level 0, generate resources into level 1, and then I was able to carefully side into his level 1 board to stall him a turn, because he ended up committing double 1/0 Miko to the board at level 1 instead of holding one in his hand to try and loop himself to 2 the following turn. So seeing him commit 2 of them to board, I was able to side against his level 1s, keep him at 1 while being at 1/3, 1/4 myself, and knowing that I will get hit to level 2 the next turn. So I was able to hit level 2 before my opponent. I was able to establish double Kanata that turn and salvage enough backups, enough defensive threats to hold board through that, and then loop Kanata, I believe it was 2 to 3 more turns into finishing him off. So it was a very back and forth game, but the tempo of me hitting level 2 first, I believe, ultimately decided it.
So going to my actual round 3, which I have as round 4, this was actually my first loss on the day. It was to Exodia Quince with the Itsuki level 1. So this deck, it felt pretty similar to playing into 8 Door Quince in some way due to that Itsuki. It was, I felt it was like a pretty fine matchup for me, especially at level 2, since the Exodia list doesn't really do much level 2. All of its firepower is saved for level 3. So I felt pretty ahead and confident when I was during the level 2 turns, and right when it was my last level 2 turn, when I'm expecting to go level 3, I trigger, I think it was, I can't remember, when I triggered some number of doors, and he was in level 3, and from there my fate was basically sealed, because the Exotic Quince is basically it's like this whole crazy combo. It's like a Fumio, which generates a ton of stock for him. There's a Restander involved in it, and also an effect that burns 1 whenever you eat damage. So because I just triggered 2 doors, I ate damage, I took some burns, and usual all of those combinations, I ended up just dying from 2-5.
Yeah, that deck's a wild. It's a wild fucking ride, man.
Yeah.
If you're scratching your, if you're listening to this scratch in your head, you're just gonna have to go see the Facebook poster and see the look at this deck list and check it out. It was super cool.
It is very unique. I will say that. Especially because I don't think anyone from Pittsburgh's played it. Maybe Tyler has at some point. I don't know, but I wasn't really familiar with the deck going into it.
Yeah, I know Tyler's played it into me in practice. I don't know if he's actually taken it to a locals though.
I don't think I ever took it to locals.
No question about it, though. This guy was the truest Quince fan in the building. Everybody else was just playing 8 standby or whatever, drinking the Kool-Aid. But this guy, he had all the girls in his deck. Truest fan. He even had the dude in there. The whole family.
So
Yep.
I think that made round 3. Zach ended up losing, but the 2 of us ended up winning. So we were 3-0 at this point. Going into round 4, Zach had already explained his matchup there. So I think it's on to you, Andy.
Yep. So round 4, I think Brian, Tyler, Tanner, I think you guys played this team too. I played against a guy named Steve. He was playing 8 standby Mushoku. Really cool dude. Found out after the game he was the JP Nats champion at some point. So probably the same Steve, right?
2016.
The standby bar Mushoku guy.
Oh, is he
No,
playing standby bar? No, this guy's playing 8 standby.
I don't
Yeah,
think we played into 8 standby Mushoku at all, did we?
Oh no, maybe you just played against a different Steve. I heard you mention Steve.
we
played
played into New Jersey, Steve.
Oh no, okay, no, this was a different Steve. JP Nats champ Steve. Yeah, he's playing 8 standby Mushoku. Wasn't expecting to see that deck, like at all, but there was a surprising amount of Mushoku around the room throughout the course of the day and even into top cut. The 8 standby deck, I was asking him after, like picking his brain about it a little bit. He had some like cool cards in there. I think he had the it was like the Sylph counter. I'd never seen anyone play that before, which is like a sort of like a anti-damage.
Yeah, that
counter.
was like the defensive pivot Japan took with the second like the deck got hit the first time, is like so that you still have a defensive counter. You just slot 4 Sylphs and still play the 2/2, so you can keep your board.
So, I was keeping track of like where all his were and seeing if he had how many he had going back on his refreshes and everything. But I was very, very happy to have the Pachins in my deck for this matchup. As 16-5 is even too big for Mushoku to crack. So I was walling him out pretty nicely with that, which is great. But I ended up in a really bad deck state before the final turn, where I basically had I had no climaxes in my 18-19 card deck or something. And I knew that okay, he's going to hit level 3 next turn just because how the game is. And he's just going to triple combo me and blow me up. So I had to emergency panic button, just mill through my entire deck with the Payon, who is the level 1 guy that goes with the Pachins, who summons them. So I had to just spend it was 15, so 5 or 6 stock, just milling through my entire deck to do nothing. And that left me in a position where I'm gonna be really hard up to kill him. So I had to spend so much stock to go through that. But he ended up just untapping and killing me anyway, so I kind of felt pretty bad at the end there. The game was going really good. I thought I had it in the bag, but ended up in that real bad deck state, and you have to do what you have to do sometimes. But I lost that one.
So for my matchup, I ended up playing against Varga. He is one of the other Toronto locals. I wasn't sure what he was going to be playing that day because I know that he had played he played Don Machi last year in fall, and he ended up top 4ing the Toronto BCS with that. So I wasn't sure what I was going to queue into, and then all of a sudden, mulligans go on, and I find myself playing against 8 standby Quints again. It was a very close game, back and forth. This was actually my first loss of the day. It ended up just coming down to he was able to cancel 3 or 4 extra times between level 1 and level 2. And even though I still hit him to 3-5, I think it was, I wasn't able to kill him on the turn I triple marined. So those extra cancels ended up paying off in the long run, and I ended up just dying the turn after that. So I think that was our first loss as a team, was round 4. So 3-1.
All right, round 5, I queued into 8 standby Mushoku, being piloted by Roy Choi. This was I remember this being a very fun game since it was super fast paced. Not due to people taking damage or anything, but due to the fact that we were both figured our turns out very quickly and played through our turns very quickly. So it felt very back and forth with that. I felt like AOT was able to keep up with his board pretty decently well, especially because he never. I don't know if he ran that counter or not, since he never ended up playing it to my knowledge. But it was a pretty fun game. I was able to keep his board in check. He ended up going to level 3 first. Failed to kill me with the Ghislaine finisher, and I ended up killing him on swing back with Sasha.
Yep. For me, round 5, I played against Pants Book Slime. This game, it was just like a super compression war. I was just super compressing with my stock with the dual laners. He was just sending a bunch of shit to memory, so we were both like super compressed, canceling a lot. And when I got to my kill turn, I had 20 stock, and I'm all right. Time to go off. And I almost had him. Like if his climaxes would have been sequenced a bit differently, I could have won, I think, but they weren't. He's just too compressed. So it seemed like it felt like a really tough matchup. Tokyo Avengers, honestly, it felt like probably my toughest matchup I played that day. Just like in hindsight, looking back at it, especially considering he didn't get a chance to do it to me. But he had the stock swap too, and I was watching his graveyard like a hawk the entire game because like I didn't see it on his first refresh, and I'm like I thought it's like maybe he just doesn't run it. But we were talking after the game, and I think I got it confused for like another pink hair girl. There's too many pink hair girls at level 0 in Slime, and I think I just mistook it for something else. But he was clutching it. He was going to get me if I didn't try to kill him that turn anyway. So that's just how it goes.
So for this round, ended up queuing into, once again, 8 standby Quints. Very similar situation to round 3, where it was just a back and forth. My opponent wasn't canceling as much as my round 4 opponent was, but when it came to level 3, I thought I saw an opportunity where I could triple marine and swing him from 3-0, 3-1 to game. And then all of a sudden, throughout triple marine, he ended up quintuple canceling. So I only stuck a burn for 2. So either he was more compressed than I assumed he was, than I had calculated with that, or the climaxes were just laid out in the way that he needed to survive that turn. But either way, he ended up surviving the triple marine turn, and he ended up killing me on the swing back. So we ended up losing that round as well.
You can't beat a quintuple cancel. We call that that's the quintessential cancel when tuplet does that.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember watching that happen and just shaking my head. It was just so crazy to see that. That whole team was popping up watching that too, because I think you two were the last two to be playing.
Yeah, like I saw Patrick going with the Marines. I'm like, oh, thank God, Patrick's doing the thing.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they just don't do anything. But good group of guys to play against. Currently at this point we are 3-2.
3-2, yeah.
So we're on a win. We're on a necessary to win situation.
Yes. Going into round 6, I played into Standby Bar Mushoku. Brian, I think this might be the same guy you played into.
Okay.
It is.
Now-
It is
now-
because I
now
remember
this-
that.
now
Yeah.
this
They
is
were
my
talking
bar,
about
yeah.
8. My opponent was 8 bar 7 deadly sins, and I think he was the only person in the world playing that deck.
Yeah,
So
because Tanner played
Yeah.
into that. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, this guy was very powerful. I remember.
So strong. Yeah.
I remember. So spoiler, I lost this game, and he told me afterwards that he was pretty excited because he went 6-0 for as a personal record that day, which I definitely believe that this was a pretty. I felt pretty behind this whole game. Just nothing was really going right. I I was tricking a bunch. I think I might have skipped a level at one point, gone straight to 3, though that might have been one of the Top Gun matches later on. But yeah, I felt like I just got picked apart towards the end there, and I just got blown up by Ruger.
yeah, me and I remember we were all talking like after the game, and like I think that deck's like super underrated. The Ruger, like standby bar, or just the Ruger combo in general, and Mushoku. I'm definitely curious to peep his list because like 6-0 over the course of the day is like that's like super impressive.
Yeah,
So-
that's definitely not just luck alone. There's definitely something to that list to be able to do that.
Yeah. He was the guy with the Sylphie mat that was playing the one Sylphie SSP just because he liked the character, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yep. So my opponent for round 6 was, like I said, 8 bar 7 deadly sins. I'd never played against this deck, right? All I've really seen from 7 deadly sins, like the new stuff, has been the Escorner build, like over and over again. But it was super cool. I really like the level 1 combo in that deck, the King combo that basically says their stuff can't move or pop back to hand or go to memory or anything. You just like hard remove whatever's in front of it and deny like any sort of memory effects. But yeah, it was a super interesting build. I had no idea what any of his shit did, so I had to like read all his cards. Yeah, he's a super cool dude. But that didn't stop me from building a fuckload of stock and just blowing him up. As we do. Patrick?
And then for my matchup, so again, ended up queuing up into 8 standby Quints. I ended up playing this deck 4 times throughout the day, and 3 of them came in the final 3 rounds of Swiss. This one, however, ended up going the opposite way as the previous 2 games. I ended up being able to hit level 2 first as usual. I was able to establish double to triple Kanata first turn out, and then just hold board against 8 standby Quints. I was able to threaten the anti-change since level 2, and ended up killing him with Marines at level 3. He was not as compressed as my previous 2 opponents, so it was easier to stick the damage there. So I ended up pulling that out.
Yep, and then we were 4-2 at that point, and I figured, okay, well, we're probably not making it. But then we all waited around, and at last we ended up making it. So
yeah. I think both of our team losses were against teams that also made top cuts, which I think is a big reason of why we were able to bubble into this overall.
Yeah, it's one of the positives to getting your first 1 or 2 losses later on in the tournament. Usually those opponents can carry your strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So losing round 4, round 5 is much better than losing round 1, round 2. So
yeah, so at this point, like after we ended up making top 8, we had to like sit around forever and like do deck checks.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
it took for fucking ever.
Yeah,
it was like an hour and a half at least,
yeah.
but I guess it makes sense because
There's so many.
they had to check
players,
24 decks, not just 8. What were you gonna say?
Oh, there was also one situation from what we had seen go on with one of the other top cut teams where they had to re-sleeve their deck like 3 or 4 separate times.
Mm-hmm.
So that ended up taking up the time of 1 or 2 of the judges alone.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up being one of the final teams to finally get deck checked. So it wasn't like we could get, it wasn't that we sat down, got checked, and then got up for an hour. We actually had to sit there for the entire hour and a half waiting for everything else to finish.
Yeah. Though once they got to us, there weren't any issues. I don't think so. It
No,
was
we
kind of a
ran through
reset
our
for
top,
that.
we ran through our deck checks very quickly. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, we ended up finishing 7th in Swiss. So first round of top 8, because it's bracket style at this point, we faced off against the second place team from Swiss. You guys want to go into your matchups for that?
Yes, we did. And yes, I do. So I queued into Escanor for the first time that day. I lost it completely up until then. I'm pretty sure this was a pretty standard Escanor list he was playing. From all my experience with the deck, it was pretty standard game, as normal as any of the others I'd already played. Right when I shoot him to 3 first, and he doesn't die, and I'm pretty scared at this point that of Estorm, because he slams down I think 1 or 2 of them, and then I'm like waiting anxiously for him to slam the choice and kill me, but instead he just ends up going straight to attacks. He whiffed his climax, and I definitely would not have lived if he had gone the Escanor off. I definitely would have died. So I was quite fortunate in that regard, and I was able to kill him in return off the stand on the swing back. So that's 1 there.
Yep, and then for me, I played against Mushoku. I sat down. This dude, his name Philip, cool dude. He sat down. He pulled out his Roxy deck box and his Roxy playmat and his Roxy sleeves. And we start the game, and I was lying. He wasn't playing Mushoku. He was playing Kanada Marin. He faked me out, that bastard. But so we had a good laugh about that. But yeah, he's playing Kanada Marin. My notes here. What did I got? I had a pretty good early game. I felt I had like multiple turns of dual laners, and everything felt like it was going pretty well. Though like his game was going well too. It was, back and forth sort of game. But me and Patrick were talking about this matchup actually earlier in the day, like when we were sitting around all that time and waiting for a deck check. Just like how to approach that matchup if I ended up facing it. It was the same thing Patrick explained. So I took Patrick's advice there. I set up the Pachin dual laners like early, like preemptively, trying to like deal with his Kanadas, so he just couldn't like loop him forever. And that felt pretty good, and it was like definitely putting in work for me. But alas, I ended up losing to the triple Marine stock swap. But I don't know. I felt like my deck did pretty good in that matchup, all things considered. So
yeah. It's not an unwinnable matchup from TRV's perspective, but it is a favored matchup for Kanata Marine. So
yeah, I know going into the tournament too, one of the things that like pushed me over the edge into wanting to play Tokyo Avengers in the first place was me and Carmen are talking, and he's like, "Yeah, like Kanada Marine's like probably like one of the worst matchups for you, but you only have like a third of a chance to see it because it's trios."
Yep. Yeah, so if you have one bad matchup, it's not too big of a deal to play a specific deck. It's when you start having multiple poor matchups that it can become a problem. So going into my matchup, I ended up queuing into Door Choice AOT. This game looked even from the start. ended up starting Laplace at 0 again, as I had done every game up to this point. I was able to either have Laplace turn 1 or get it by turn 2. So was able to establish board, generate enough hand to make my way to level 2. And then at level 2, my opponent was not able to answer my double to triple Kanata board. I wasn't too sure what had happened with that. He didn't have a brainstorm on board until level 3. So he wasn't generating as many resources and didn't have as much deck speed as he could have. He was solely relying on his Mikasa combo at level 1. He was able to loop that 2 turns though. So he was able to have enough hand, but he just didn't have the right cards to answer my board. So I was able to take advantage from there. I was able to compress enough, push enough damage to push him to 3. And at 3, he was only able to single combo, which is a little unfortunate for that deck, for how cheap the combo is. But he was only able to single combo, and even against a deck that runs 20, 19 or 20 level zeros, his mill 4 only hit 1 level 0. So I only ate a burn 1, and I was able to cancel 2 or 3 of those actual attacks, and then finish him off with Marine the turn after. So we ended up winning top 8, and we ended up going into top 4.
Yeah, I was pretty pumped at this point. I didn't really care too much about, like, I obviously cared, about doing well over the course of the day. It was great to top 8 and everything. But, I was just glad to pull my weight over the course of the day up to that point. I didn't want to let you guys down. But, but at that point, I was starting to, like, salivate at the thought of, like, oh, yeah, if I can get that, I want to win that stamped, what's her fucking name?
Katara.
So much Kanata over the course of the day. I got him confused. But, oh, man, I was actually like, oh man, we're in it to win it now.
Yeah, once you hit that top 4, it's a second wind at that point. But why don't we get to our matchups, and we'll see how that turned out.
So my top 4 match, I played against Pansdor Kaguya. This was the eventual first place that one of the eventual first place team's decks. So this game, in short, went absolutely abysmally for me. All the good luck, relatively speaking, that I'd had throughout the day was just suddenly evaporated. I was eating a bunch of damage. Had a bunch of climaxes in my hand all game that just, whenever I got rid of them, I just drew more. It was just terrible the whole way through. I was basically level behind the whole game. So yeah, at some point I was shot to 3-5 when I was nowhere near ready to be at such a high level, and I tried to grind it back the best of my ability, but I just couldn't do it. It was just too rough of a game overall. So yeah, I ended up losing that one. I do want to give a massive shout out to my opponent for being a super cool guy. So at one point in the game, I played the 3-2 arm and digged off of it, but I digged 4 when I only should have been able to dig 3 because I had both the Chiuri, Gabby, and the Archer on field. I'm used to only having the Archer, so I am used to just digging 4 if I have a full field and I see an Archer. So if I see that, I just dig 4. But because the Gabby isn't a core trade, I wasn't able to do that to dig with it. He noticed this. The judges came over, and then he argued on my behalf, saying I'd been honest throughout the whole game and that I should not get the game loss. And because of that, or maybe it didn't matter, maybe the judges would have been chosen anyway, but I am still very grateful for him for doing that because I did not get a game loss and I was able to finish the game relatively normally. So that's super cool. A lot of people would not have done that.
Yeah, those guys were like super, super nice. And these are the guys who ended up going on to win the whole thing too.
Mm-hmm.
But like me and my opponent, we ended up like, we saw that going on because we were in the center. And we were kind of both like, like paying attention to our own game first and foremost, but kind of like getting a little distracted by what was going on over there. And I heard that guy speak up like on your behalf, and I was like, good for him, man. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Very thankful for that.
So big ups to him. My opponent, he was playing 8 standby, and yeah, this is the team that won it all. And this guy really knew his shit. I could tell. Like he's playing 8 standby Quince. He was like applying pressure in like a really annoying way to me. Like over the course of the game, like he ended up setting up the unkillables, like the 1/1 can't be reversed by level 0s, and those were kind of a pain in the ass for me to deal with. But like I figured, okay, you know, my Mikeys are still stronger, you know, sitting at 7k to his 65, so I figured we'd just like trade back and forth a little bit. But he kept like pumping over him. He didn't get like a back row pump or anything, I don't think, down, but he just kept like finding ways to like get over and forcing me to have to like keep backing up to keep my dual laner alive, which is really fucking annoying. But yeah, he took the game really slow. So I felt like I had a pretty good shot of winning, actually. Trying to take advantage of the fact that Quince is one of like the few decks that doesn't have stock swap. So I'm like, all right, like it's great that he's taking the game long. I can just build up a bunch of stock and be super, super compressed, which is what I ended up doing. And I had a really, really good kill turn set up. But I just kept fucking triggering 2 souls when I was swinging in the open lanes. And yeah, like going into the kill turn, it felt like I felt like I was probably gonna get him. But then like I think I triggered it like a 2 soul and like swung for 6 over his next deck, I think. And he canceled on 6. And at that point, he's just like, yeah, I'm just so compressed now. There's no way you're gonna get me. And it ended up being true. But man. Very, very good game. I think we both played really well. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. Good guy.
So for my matchup, I ended up queuing into 7 Deadly Sins. First time throughout the day to see this deck in front of me. This was the one matchup that I did not want to see if I was playing Sora, but was much more confident in since I was playing Kanata Marine. So it wasn't as much of a headache as it could have been, luckily. Ended up being my opponent hits me to level 1 first. I was able to establish single to double Miko. I was able to hit level 2 first from that, establish double Kanata this game. He did not get the Cart Titan, so he did not get the yellow 2/1 into his hand when he hit level 2. The only one he was able to get was the red Adachi, the memory Adachi, but he only played 1 copy of each. So between all of that, he was only able to remove 1 of my Kanatas from board, and I was able to loop Kanata the turn after and reestablish a full board of Kanatas. So being able to keep that pressure up, being able to manipulate Soul with the climax and swing through any compression he had, I was able to hit him to level 3. When he hit level 3, very similar situation happened as Zach's earlier matchup with 7 Deadly Sins, where my opponent just couldn't get the choice. He didn't get it. He had single to double Escanor ready to go. I don't think I would have died from that. I think I was actually so far ahead on damage that it wouldn't have mattered enough, and ended up closing it out the turn after. So it was a little unfortunate top end on my opponent's side, but the early mid game was at least back to forth, or back and forth. So we had a close start to the game. But unfortunately, team went 1-2, so we weren't able to make it to the championships, but we were still able to play for 3rd, 4th. So, Zach?
So my last game of the day is against. It's a rematch actually against Exodia Quince once again. So that was my first loss of the day, and I get a chance to redeem myself. Unfortunately for me, some of my bad luck from the previous game kind of carried over into this one. I was triggering a bit more often than I liked. I was drawing climaxes more often than I liked, and it was a bit of a struggle the whole way through. But it was a much better game overall than the previous round. I I got a bit. I was able to enjoy a bit of the breather that I got in the first in my first match against this opponent at level 2, where I basically just dominated the board due to his lack of options at this point. But unfortunately for me, I was eating. I was kind of on the back foot damage wise throughout the game, and I was in a similar situation to previous game where I kind of had to just scramble for options, anything to like hold him off for one more turn. Uh, Unfortunately, I was only able to do. He was able to cancel pretty well when I tried to kill him off of Gabby, since I was pretty low on sausages in this particular game, and he was able to stabilize at 3. And then he was able to do enough damage with his Exodia finisher to just kill me dead.
Yep. My round 9 opponent, Danny Pham rematch. He's back with a vengeance. I didn't really have a good opener. I believe I very aggressively shot myself up to level 1 with all my clocking effects. The goal being to set up the dual laners as quickly as possible and then just kind of throttle my damage against him to build up an unsurmountable amount of stock, and then just get to my second deck and just cancel. But this I think this ended up backfiring on me a bit, because this was the worst fucking game of my entire life. Nothing went well. It was just impossible to get everything. I was drawing all the wrong cards at all the wrong times. I was triggering when I didn't want to, and he was the one triple canceling me this game. And it was just horrible. But all my other games up to this point, like the other 8 rounds, all felt like really good. Like even the few games when I lost, it felt like, it still was like a very close game. But this one was just a blowout. Nothing I could do about that one.
Yeah, sometimes we have those unfortunate games, and sometimes they come at the timings we don't want them to.
It is what it is, man.
Yeah. So unfortunately, our team ended up not winning that round, but we, as mentioned, the mirror match for me was the Kanata Marine mirror. My game ended up being the last one to finish, so having the other 2 games finish up the way they did, our result didn't matter. My opponent and I ended up playing the game out, and it ended up being a closer game than I wanted it to. Again, I was able to stall my opponent at level 1, and they swung me to level 2 first. So I was able to establish the Kanata board. My opponent was able to get some extra compression, though, going into level 3, which was a little surprising to me. I guess it was just natural compression versus mine, where I had triggered once or twice throughout those 2 or 3 Kanata turns. So between that, they were actually in a fairly compressed deck state where I wanted to threaten Marine. So when it came to his finishing turn, he was only able to threaten single Marine. I don't know what his priorities were throughout level 2 and level 3 on what cards to hold in his hand, but only being able to get single Marine at that point was really surprising to me. But he didn't have the damage output to push me far enough into level 3. So I was able to sit at low level 3, about 3-2, and go into my turn. I ended up triple marining and playing a stock swap. but my opponent survived through that turn. And on top of that, we ended up going into our last 2 turns, what ended up being the last 2 turns of the game. My opponent wasn't able to present enough soul damage to swing me to level 4. But on the crackback, even through his, again, compressed deck, I was able to loop the Helmet Kanata into a second stock swap, which ended up hitting 3 or 4 of his climaxes and swung him to game there. So at that point, we ended up losing that round, but we placed top 4. So that, I don't know about you guys, but that was the best showing that I've at least experienced in the past year and a half.
Oh yeah,
So-
absolutely. This is my best ever tournament result for a big event like this. So I obviously wanted to go further. Once you clear the first hurdle of top cut and you're in top 4, you obviously want to go for the gold. You feel like you can really do it at that point, but
Yep.
even just settling for 4th, I still felt really good afterwards. I really felt accomplished.
Yep. There's nothing you can turn down, especially if you hit top cut. Top cut is nothing to shake a finger at. It's nothing to turn down. It just goes to show that those who hit top cut know their deck.
Mhm.
You guys were able to play well enough. We were able to play well enough. And unfortunately for the other 2 teams, we just had the better tiebreakers at that point. Honestly, would have loved to see more of the Pittsburgh crew in top 8. I think that would have been an insanely hype top 8 if that had happened.
I really wanted indeed. That would have been a legendary.
No,
That
I
would have
was
been-
waiting for the.
That would have been an
legendary, yeah.
absolute. It was the Ocean's 09, dude. We gotta sneak them in. We gotta steal the top.
But yeah, I feel like all our teams like would have been equally deserving to like get into top 8.
Oh sure.
We were the lucky ones to make the cut, but I'm very proud of us. I'm really proud of like especially my team. We I felt like all 3 of us, me, Zach, and Patrick, all played like super tight. I don't think any of us really like made any mistakes really over the course of the day. Like just talking to you guys between rounds and just hearing like your guys like go through your tournament reports. So yeah, that's really cool. And while Brian and Tanner and Tyler were doing their going through their report, I did some mathematics here. I was looking on Weiss Tea Time. She has like, if any of you are watching and want to see the all the top 8 deck lists, she has them all up on her site on Weiss Tea Time. But is looking at like the breakdown of the top 8, right? And I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised. I expected a little bit more deck diversity, I think, especially since it was trios. But I wasn't horribly surprised at like the decks that were represented a lot. So like the breakdown in the top 8, there was 6 Hololive decks. 5 of the 6 being Kanata Marine. 5 Quince decks, with 4 of the 5 being 8 standby. 5 AOT decks, which there was actually a lot of diversity here, and there's 3 different builds that saw pretty equal amounts of play there. Only 3 7 Deadly Sins. 2 Mushoku 8 standbys. And then 1 Slime, 1 Kaguya, 1 Tokyo. But yeah, it seemed like Hololive was like the clear front runner on all the teams, I'd say. I was very surprised not to see more diversity from Hololive. Especially since I'd been hearing so much about like the Miko Sora deck lately. I figured that would be like the big breakout deck to watch out for. But
People
I'm
enjoy
not- yeah.
playing Kanata because it's a unique kind of deck. So when people are like in a trios mindset, I think it's like not only is it a strong pick, but like people just enjoy that deck, like that play style. It's unique enough. So it's like a comfort pick, a unique pick, a waifu pick, and a strong pick all in one. So you're gonna see a lot of it.
Yeah, the deck, even though it is a unique play style, the deck also tends to just play itself out. So compared to something like Miko Sora, there is actually a threshold for that deck where it can either A, lose to itself, or one slight stock misplay from the player can cost you a full board of Sora. So it's a little more fragile in that state compared to Kanata Marine, which is much more stable, much more consistent, and has much better selectivity, to say, at level 2. So I didn't get to say this earlier, but one of the other big factors why I switched to Kanata Marine was I thought that a lot of the top decks, a lot of the decks that I would see represented, had answers to Sora in the English meta. There might not have been as many answers in the Japanese meta when Sora was popular, but in English, I felt that there were more existent. So I wanted a way to be able to defend my Soras, and over gameplay, over testing, even if I ran 2 anti-changes, I wasn't guaranteed to have it in my hand at that point. So I wasn't guaranteed to have the defense, have the response to the response for Sora. Whereas for Kanata, you're guaranteed to salvage backups the turn that the turn that Kanata hits board.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few things that play into it. Both decks are good. Both decks have their own game plan, but when it comes to the Toronto area, I feel their player base in tournament tend to play a little more consistency, a little more meta based. So
Interesting. But
I was honestly a bit surprised that there wasn't more Escanor in Top Cut. Now, the Escanor that was there, I'm looking at the YC10 article myself right now, that Escanor decks were on both first and second place teams. As well, and the only other one was the one that I beat in top 8. But it's still, especially considering how much talk about the deck that there was before the tournament, I'm kind of surprised that there were only 3 of them that made the conversion.
There was a
So when
lot
it
more
comes-
throughout the room. I can tell you that much. when I
Yeah,
was
there was
walking
more.
around.
There was more throughout the room, but again, one of the things that I've at least experienced in Toronto is a very idle heavy region.
Yeah.
The sets they play are more polarized compared to other regions. So the sets that you would encounter, or the representation rates of sets you would encounter in Toronto, is far different than what you would encounter in, say, Southern California. So it comes with time to sort of understand what you might expect to see in Toronto, but once you hit those numbers, once you find out what that representation would look like, it's actually fairly easy to estimate what you're going to run into.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of other areas, we're coming to the close here. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about the other Spring Fest we're going to be attending. Personally, I will be in Duluth, Georgia with Nico and Dean again, April 1st, 2nd, and then I will be in Houston with Hit and Dean April 1st or April 29th and 30th, and then I'll also be in Chicago and New Jersey. So going to a bunch myself. I know you guys aren't attending maybe that many, but what are the next ones everybody's looking to attend?
My team, the only other one my team's hitting this season is will be in Newark at the end of May.
Yeah, I think that was probably the one I was going to try to go to too, since it's the closest.
I'm planning on going to definitely Newark, definitely Rosemont. I guess I'm so technically considering Duluth, I'm leaning more towards no because of the long drive, but definitely the other 2 in the Northeast, Newark and Rosemont.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, absolutely. Area. I don't know what they're thinking. Like it's you have to go like an hour and a half through Atlanta City traffic from the airport to get to where the venue is. And that's like, it's just like, that's a really expensive Uber or a rental car, neither of which is very economical to get to the venue. But it's the same venue it's been, so I guess it's not going anywhere. What about you, Patrick? What's your next stop?
So guaranteed, I'll be in New Jersey. I'll be in Newark. So you guys will see me there. I'll actually have another team, a different team for that one. So thank you, Andy. Thank you, Zach, for teaming with me for Toronto. I'm on the fence about Chicago. I don't think I'll be going. I don't have a team just yet, and it is sort of coming down to the wire for that. Maybe I'll make the drive out there and just hang out. I'm not too sure yet. But if you don't see me in Rosemont, then you'll for sure see me in Newark.
All right, sounds good. I think the meta will be pretty static until Alice descends upon us, which will be the first. New Jersey will be the first. Or no, Rosemont.
No, Rosemont.
Yeah, Rosemont is actually the first one. Comes out. That just makes the cut, I think.
Yep, 2 weeks after.
Yep, exactly. So, Duluth and Houston will be like the same meta, and then Rosemont forward will be including Alice. We will see things change with Alice, or we will see only Alice. Those are the only two outcomes. either people will change, or it will be Alice only.
Well, we'll also have to find out how people adjust to playing Alice, because
that is true.
The Alice turn is not as written in stone as it seems.
So. No, it is not. I can agree with you there. After playing it quite a bit, I've been prepping for that one in English. That is definitely a deck I am watching like a hawk, both for my own play and for playing into it.
All right, Carmen, let me know what seat you're sitting in for Newark, so that way we can.
Yeah, so that way, no, so that I can be the absolute opposite end of the table, because the mirror match is terrible from what little I have played it so far.
Gentlemen's agreement: no Sword Art Alice in the middle lane.
No Sword Art. Keep her on the ends, or on the sides. All right, I believe that's it. Patrick, do you have any shout-outs before we get out of here?
Just a quick shout-out to the SBTCG crew. Shout-out to Jason, who was able to make that tournament as well. It was good seeing him and Ryan. Shout-out to Yue and Tom. I know they tried to get out to the tournament. It was unfortunate that their flight ended up getting delayed and or canceled due to the weather that happened that weekend. But hopefully we're able to meet up with everyone soon.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. It was really unfortunate their flight got tanked. Even more unfortunate that like after that night the weather was like totally fine, which like it was fine the rest of the weekend. It was just that one night, and it brought down a lot of planes. Never left the ground.
Yeah, I heard a lot of chatter around the room too about people saying like, about flights getting canceled.
Flights getting canceled, people not being able to make it out, yeah. And we still had a good showing. It was still 42 teams, so still pretty good, despite the weather. Excited to see the numbers for the next regional. White seems pretty healthy right now. All right, with that, Pittsburgh White Schwartz signing off. We will see you all in the next one.